Yes, sounds of Amfest Band right here on Power Breakfast, enjoying, treating us to some musical interlude. We continued our news review this morning with Senator Agnes Zani, Acting Secretary General ODM, Wanjiko Mohia, Women Representative Nyandarua County, and Cynthia Mutere, Governance Analyst and the Chair of the Women League in Ford, Kenya. Now, of course, before the break we discussed other issues, but now I want us to move closer to the politics. And of course, yesterday's approval of the nominees for the IEBC was one very major political move, because they're coming right as we start this mass voter registration exercise. And how was it feeling yesterday in the National Assembly? Because we do understand there were questions here and there, but how was it feeling after you did your job?
Honestly, this was long overdue, and really did we have a choice, considering the time constraint and all that Kenyans have gone through. The IEBC team, the commissioners, really have to be in place without waiting even one more day. So we were happy. We found it as an achievement, because it is also our work to install what Kenyans are demanding. And since the previous IEBC are meant to be out, and Kenyans are also anxious as we approach election, we know the anxiety grow. It is our duty to put in place or do our work. So we were happy.
From a party position?
I think they're coming in when there's a lot of work to be done. They need to have their work cut out for them very, very quickly. I think gain cognizance of the issues. I had during the nomination process that some of them didn't have a lot of experience. But they have a secretariat there. They might be able to get one or two tips. They have to make the managerial decisions, because they're critical decisions that have to be made. And I think even starting with the voter registration itself, within minutes, the news already was abreast with lots of irregularities, and especially on the CORD side, if I might say that. We had issues from Ziwa la Ng'ombe at Bombolulu, where I come from. There was issue at Bungoma. One of my colleagues actually went from station to station, and nothing completely was going on. We had issues, I think, in Nakuru as well. Now, this IEBC must realize that already Kenyans have been tested, as far as matters IEBC. And there's a comparison now with other standards, looking at Gambia, looking at Ghana, looking at Tanzania. You know, you're looking at standards that it's possible to run a free, fair, credible, transparent election. It's not rocket science anymore, having the right kids. Now, Kriegler gave also a very good input and very clear report about what this should happen. And the key things which are very, very critical is the identification, and the proposal was for the BVR. And then there is the EVID, the identification of the voters when they come, that they be identified, and then the results transmission, the RTS, which are the most critical things. Now, that's the bigger picture. Across the smaller picture comes the issue of procurement, the issues of engaging with political parties, you know, and we have been talking with IEBC, and we've said it at various points. For example, the procurement, sometimes process is not as transparent. There's nothing wrong with this team calling upon stakeholders, because when people are called in and saying, you know, this is what we want to do, this is the way we want to go, listen to proposals, functionally decide the way forward and be able to move. This is one team that will have to work with such transparency. And I know in the media people talk about, oh, you know, we are predicting doom. We're not predicting any doom. In fact, you can have a very good election and have a united Kenya. That election can unify Kenyans in a way that they've never been united before, if they feel it is credible and fair, and it is possible. One, we can't afford to have any delays in the result transmission. We can't afford to have what we are hearing now. Why would any BVR kit not be working at this point, IEBC, during voter registration? What message are you actually giving across? So the level of preparedness is the reason why the other IEBC went. And in various forums you told them you were not prepared. But you see, Kenyans are wondering, is it lack of preparedness or is it all intentional? And you know, once you have the intentional theory, you're creating quite a bit of problem. You're creating a problem also within an environment where we have a contentious new election law vis-a-vis what the select committee had actually come up with. And we're looking at a select committee that did a very good job, came up with very clear systems. We have an amendment that's talking about a complementary. The word is complementary. There's no definition actually of whether it's complementary with an E, it's written with an E, or whether with an I. But you realize that even as we move that motion, nobody's making the effort of defining what is this complementary system. Nobody's making effort to identify when does it really kick in. Can we have complementary systems kicking in at different times at
so
different places. So it's up. So what I'm saying is that there's a lot of, well, this is what the law says that they're meant to define this, but I don't think it's going to be only their space. Political parties are going to be very instrumental in this, because this is where, because all the work you do, the election is going to be won first on voter registration, but 2 on fair election, 3 on proper result transmission, so that we actually have, and when we think about this, we think about this as presidential. And just to urge, because all stakeholders need to be interested, because it will affect the MCA. It's the same law that will affect the MCA, it will affect the MP, it will affect the Senate, it will affect the governor, it will affect the presidential candidate.
Now, the Senator mentioned about the Kriegler report, and one of the recommendations there was that this scheme needed to have been in place at least 24 months before the elections. Yes, now this is actually slightly more than 6 months to the election date. What are the challenges we foresee? Because we do understand some political parties still are waiting on this same commission to conduct their party primaries.
Well, first and foremost, it was no mean feat to get the commission in place, because you do know the process that CORD actually had to go to the streets to get them. And of course, so then the 24 months before the election timeline could not be met, because now there was action for the other commission to be removed so that we could put in place this new one. One thing I do want to also commend is that we've at least met the 2/3 gender rule in this commission and not running into court and having all these hiccups. One thing I want to encourage the commissioners is to be proactive, because some of the issues that are being raised, we need to see them now. Just roll up your sleeves and begin to run. Where things are springing up in Bungoma, in Bombolulu, in Nakuru, we need to see them there on the ground responding. If the Secretariat, Chiluba, and all, is it Chiluba? Chiloba. Sorry about that. Yeah, so we need a proactive commission that is really going to be active. And so those are some of the things that, if we could not meet those timelines, but we can now meet that by having people like working overtime.
Yes, it's a sprint for them, not a marathon.
Something really can't go unchallenged. Honestly, we really cannot say that problems are experienced in CORD zones, because us as Jubilee, we are registering every Kenyan, not really Jubilee people like that. But most importantly is that it is the work of the opposition to keep on citing the ineffectiveness, the issues that arise. And for that reason, they may say Boboluru, Bungoma, and the rest. As a matter of fact, my own brother, who of course cannot have a choice than to vote Wanjiku Mohia, called me yesterday from Uganda, and he told me I found this challenge. So basically what I want to say is that these preliminary or the initial challenges which are there in mass registration may not necessarily be in CORD side, they may be across board, but possibly the CORD, as usual, and that is their job, have been fast to pick them and put on notice that there are these challenges, but they are across the country. No, definitely, I know even in my own village, and they are across the board.
There's also concern because the first 2 days have reported very poor turnout. Talking about the numbers, the IBC is targeting 6 million new voters. Going by the numbers yesterday and the day before, surely do you think we'll get there?
Leadership on both sides has come out to whip up their support.
I think we'll get there, and we need to inform people. I think there's this last-minute syndrome, but we have been given the statistics very clearly. These BVR are registering about 180 per day. If we make our calculation very quickly and look at the numbers, then it means we have to have like a maximization on any one single day to make it very, very clear and very, very important. But
because if people just wait till the end, then there might be a problem with
but I want us to be very clear about certain things, and that certain things are not taken out of context because it is somebody from CORD or Jubilee who said it. Facts are facts. When we talk about Bungoma backfired, it is a fact. When we talk about Zibalangombe backfiring, it is a fact. I even said even Nakuru backfired. So we need to get to a point where we begin to not point fingers and say this one is said, this one. Just look at things objectively. It is a fact. The newspapers reported. It's not something that somebody has imagined. And that is how we'll be able to solve problems, because we must be able just to put things on the table. If there's a problem, because we're not going to have a situation where you feel like you cannot talk anymore, or you're feeling you're curtailed, or if you say this is going to be no.
I want us to be careful. I want us to be careful, Zani. With all due respect, I want us to be careful in terms of perception to this new team, or rather the whole IBC. I'll keep on saying that Wabukala will win the war if we support him. Equally, IBC will win the war and will have credible elections if we support them. The fact that this country is known of perception and possibly negative perception, I just wanted to bring out that it really cannot be the intention of IBC to make these kids not work in CORD area. And that's why I pointed out my own brother, meaning there could have been many other areas where there were challenges, and objectively, including Jubilee zones. But because maybe the CORD areas were picked up, it is really something to look at, objectively fix the problem. But basically what I want us is to have a perception that is positive, to be seen like we are supporting the team, and not really say that it is the intention of IBC to start from day one through registration to downlook the CORD area. I really want to see IBC as a team to serve all Kenyans, and if a problem is there, it will be fixed very fast so that we move on the same.
And that's what we've said. IBC then needs to quickly focus on these issues, and that was the context I said it in. And I think we've had our leaders say very clearly, let us all come out and register, because that is the first step. We must be able to register. After the registration, we can move to the second level, which is actually going to vote, making a choice. It is so key, and that's why I started by saying that it is very, very possible to have a free, fair, credible election. We all target for that. We can go through this very peacefully. We can be able to put everything together. Let's pinpoint IBC, and this is why we're talking. IBC, this issue has happened here. Address it. It needs to be addressed. This issue has happened here. It needs to be happening. And those are the examples I was
from whichever part of the country.
From whichever part of the country. Them, because I do know that they have responded to many of the young people who are not able to travel back home. What they're saying is that you can go to a Huduma center close to you and register to a polling center back home. So if you're coming from anywhere outside of Nairobi, then you can probably go to Huduma center. And those are the responses that we're saying when something is highlighted, that you quickly respond. They need to work hand in hand with the National Registration Bureau, because I understand some IDs have been taken to different areas, and so the sorting agency really at the national ID, if I was waiting for my ID and it has come, and I go to Budalangi at the DO's office and I've gone to pick up my ID and it's somewhere in Eastern, then you're not helping me.
And then just a very quick one.
Responded to quickly.
And just a very quick one. The launch that they did in Nairobi, I think, was very commendable, because it gave stakeholders an opportunity to come and ask questions, and they were able. So if that can also be replicated in the 47 counties as a way to, because they were able to give the specific figures for particular counties, they were able to answer specific regional, county-related matters, and that, because most of the time it's just that lack of dialogue. We need to have that.
Yes, indeed. The mass voter registration exercise enters day 3 today, and anyone who's interested in voting, please go out and register as a voter, because we are seeing in some areas in this country it is no longer an option. You have to either do it Remember, it is a democracy, and it is your choice. It is good to have a voter's card, but it is still your choice. Let's now take a look at, and of course it's important to mention that the Wafula Chebukati team is yet to be officially appointed. Of course, what happened at the National Assembly, that information has to be transmitted to the President for official appointment. Eliud Wabukala's position as EACC chair as well has to be confirmed by the President, and that could happen as soon as this morning. We just have to wait and see. Let's now talk about politics. Former TNA Secretary General Onyango Law is to officially announce his defection to ODM this morning.
Yes. Coming to our party.
Oh yes.
Yes.
How does that make it?
ODM stands for specific things that we've stood for a long time. One of those is equality. And it's a big issue. It's about perception and reality of how equitable distribution is done in this country across economic resources, across all sorts of resources. And if you look at examples, for example, at the PM's office when he was PM, that distribution is there. If you look at the Grand Coalition, that distribution is there. This is the biggest cry so far. Resources, how they've been allocated, they've been distributed. And I think we are opening our arms in ODM, called NASA affiliated coalition, opening our arms because we are having more and more like-minded people.
Are you expecting Onyango Oloo to come with a team of other defectors?
This is what he said is coming. He said he's coming with a team of other defectors, and we've said we're really opening because we want to be able to get as many as possible of like-minded people who are going to come at the level of ODM, at the level of CORD, and the level of NASA. And I know this has been an open discussion. It has been going on so that we end up forming a formidable coalition that will take on.
While I do want to congratulate Onyango Oloo for saying, and he has said it himself, I've come home, it's a pity that someone has to now go back to their home area, and we can't be Kenyans, because really Jubilee should have stuck to the principle of if it's not broke, why fix it? Oloo managed to get them a win in 2013. They should have stuck with him. We saw rewards to Sakaja, who was also really very active to bring in TNA, and of course he got a nomination. Some discussion should have been done around that and really try to hold on to Oloo, because he really did deliver a win for Jubilee or TNA. And so it's a pity to see that, but we welcome him. He is a very responsible person. And
Wanjiku, of course.
Zani is smiling.
Are you feeling like you've lost something?
Not really, because of course Oloo out, Tuju in.
Yes.
So we really have
you balanced it out.
We balanced it, but most importantly,
someone who's really served a party that is credited with having taken the Uhuru Kenyatta to
Let
State
me
House.
point out that, of course, it is his democratic right. This happens not only at national level, even at local levels. Today I'll go to Kinangop and I'll find one of my biggest supporters has gone to the opponent. Tomorrow I'll go to Olkalau and I'll find the support of my opponent has also come to. So this is normal. It is really not something that we really need now to think the Jubilee will not move on and all that. It's his democratic right. But most importantly, there is a message sent to Kenyans that Kenyans have refused to be Kenyans.
Yes.
Wajiko of Kinangop want to remain in Kinangop.
Yes.
And that is why Oloo is still going. And in fact, there is indication in one of the lines I have seen on the paper, he may, or I've heard it, if it is true, he may be vying in Kisumu City. In one of the constituencies.
Under Jubilee?
Not really under Jubilee, because that is the party politics. But for Oloo having been the man we have known, particularly at his level, at his education, his capacity, his interaction, even with the people outside his origin county. I want to say there is a message sent to Kenyans that Kenyans have still remained with the ethnicity, and we have to remain at home, and we have to remain at our tribal cocoons, and we've really seen like we are far from moving to that direction. And for that matter, then I congratulate Tuju.
The message to Kenyans is the president is willing to have a close friend. Really, because he has been a close friend to the president.
He is refusing, Onyango Oloo is refusing to be a Kenyan.
Would have been able to
and let me say, nominations are only 12 in the National Assembly. So if Sakaja was given one, really we couldn't have given the Secretary General, the chairman, then it would have been a TNA affair in Bunge, when we needed the persons with disability, we needed women, we needed the youth, and in this matter Sakaja came in as a youth. And if I remember, if my memory serves me right, the president appointed Onyango Oloo as one of the board representatives in Lake Basin.
That contract ended last year, it was never renewed.
I am aware of that, but that not being the issue, I know Onyango Oloo was actually even supervising our elections, the previous elections for the county representative in Mombasa, and possibly he negotiated there with the Zani at Mombasa. But the message which Kenyans should see and be very worried like me is that we are still in our cocoon, in our tribal cocoon, and we move on, and finally we go back to
You must agree there's some level of truth to what the MP said.
I think what Oloo has clearly said is that he's given this statement tomorrow. Was it today? Later today, Wednesday today, from Kisumu. We are speculating. We are saying maybe it's no lack of nomination. I mean, he knew he missed this nomination earlier on, but he stayed on. So there must be various factors. But for us, we're looking at it from an angle of the party, from an angle of coalition, from an angle of strategy. from what we can be able to develop from this, and from what we can be able to encompass into this. Because as coalitions, you're always trying to make yourselves stronger coalitions. You're always looking for other like-minded to join those coalitions. We're talking about removing a government from power. So those who are able to come into that in terms of synergy, strategy, being able to push for that, I think it's very critical from our end of the coalition.
More importantly, ideology, because I've heard Onyango Lord speak, and you started off by saying, you started by saying that, and then when you find that all parties are collapsing to make one thing, one party, you're finding a shrinking space. And I think that he could not be accommodated there. So definitely he'll be looking
now, because of time, we have to make room for this discussion about the battle for Nairobi. It's turning out to be something else. And if I could just get that the standard. The front page, Raila clashes with Ruto over Nairobi, surely. Now, these two gentlemen should be discussing about the presidency, but now they've come and they're fighting over Nairobi. Why is this so important? Why is Nairobi's governor's position so important at this time?
Nairobi is the capital city of Kenya. Nairobi holds quite a substantial budget in devolved government. Being the governor of Nairobi, you're able to really showcase what Kenya is to our international friends and partners, as well as do something for the people, because really the entire nation has come to live and work in Nairobi. So the governor position in Nairobi is very important. The battle is going to be more heated, but it's interesting to see how Jubilee now, the lineup has now come into a two-horse race kind of, and of course that's interesting to see. But you see, the conversation now has kind of silenced the incumbent, where now we're seeing a lot of the Jubilee campaign in Nairobi, and we're not seeing too much of Kidero and the team speaking.
Is this crumble for the Jubilee ticket? Is it real or stage managed? Because
it could be stage managed. It could be strategy as well.
I will not say that we don't speak with authority, as some politicians put it, that it is Nairobi affair, because we all live in Nairobi, citizen is in Nairobi, we work in Nairobi. So we really have a say on this, even though our constituencies are outside Nairobi. But having said that, I want to say what Matiba used to say, wananchi waamue. That would be the slogan. Wananchi waamue, let the people decide, because when we look at this has already left Kidero 100 kilometers away. No one is thinking or remembering Kidero now. In fact, it has gone a notch higher, and it is also a good standard. It is setting a good standard for Jubilee, because really we don't see the fight of Nairobi. We don't see CORD now in Nairobi. That's why Raila has to come in.
And you have to agree, Senator, that
he doesn't have to come in. He was there for the launch of the registration.
Maina Kamada and the team, Peter Kenneth and the team, Sakaja, Sonko. It is now a Jubilee affair in Nairobi.
It now appears it's a Jubilee affair.
This is a good thing for
us. And Kidero is nowhere. That such that the party leader has to come in and take the debate.
You know, there is a very interesting thing. It's a slightly different debate that came up when we're talking about transferring of voters from one county of one constituency to another to vote there. The main debate that comes as a result of that is that to say, why are you going to be interested or to vote where you do not belong? You don't know what the issues are. You don't know what is happening. That is the underlying ideological, philosophical argument for having the people there, so that the people who are choosing the Nairobi governor are people who understand what their problems are, and are actually picking the people for that. Because there will be a time when there will be inter-county conflict, and I think it's Evans, Mheshimiwa Governor Kidero, who gave this example of where there's a conflict, for example, with Muranga on water and Nairobi. How will that decision be made? So one, I'm getting to a very important point. I'm getting to the point of why contextualization of discussion is very, very important. If it is Nairobi politics, let it be Nairobi politics. That is my point, number one. Number two, I think it's not correct to say that Kidero's visibility is not been there, and that CORD. This is something that we have slowly developed. Right now, you find it even for MCA or even for MP. You want that person, that aspirant, to have the party leader or the coalition leader sort of, help them to do the campaign. It is a culture that we've actually developed now for a long time. If you look at the paraphernalia and the material that aspirants are using, it shows their picture, and shows the picture. So, because that gives you a level of precedence, and it gives you, so that is part of it. So party leader now, Director Raila Amolo Odinga, appearing with Kireru does not suggest that Kireru cannot do it. It just suggests that the level, the hype has gone higher, and we're at a different level of actually trying to fight for the various aspirants. Now, I think I also had the Nairobi County government say in a particular different forum that maybe we haven't done enough. Maybe our PR has not done enough to articulate what we have done in Nairobi County. And I think this is a problem that is touching on very many aspirants and even incumbents. We're having a discussion earlier on about the perception that people are saying, what have you done? Maybe not enough has gone out to show people what you have done. Now, this is the opportunity, and this is what campaigns are all about. We're expecting all our incumbents to come out and say, this is what I've done, elect me for this. But of course,
Jubilee appears to have taken
but it's not necessarily positive, because you remember, and I was saying also, this Jubilee, they are going the same way, you know, this whole idea of having lineups, you know, it's showing, one, that there hasn't been unity of purpose within Jubilee, because you would have expected unity of purpose, that they're fronting one person and saying, this is the person we're fronting, we're holding. We're seeing them having this discussion. This discussion is actually happening in the open. You're bringing in the conspiracy theory that this might be just part of the hype, but
to take the debate away from the incumbent.
But then what we need to make sure, and this is what we're doing from CORD, is to make sure that that debate does not move away from the incumbent. That person. No, I don't think so.
Every day in the headlines we're talking about what Sonko
but you see, and we know what news sells. You know, it is when dog gets man that the news sells.
Let me point out
something. This is a situation like that. There's that hype, and that is what is bringing it all out. But really, I think in terms of strategy and in terms of coherence, it's a question of now finding out finally who are the two who are going to phase out, and then it's a popularity battle.
Ladies, allow me to tell you this. Because of time, make your final submissions, even as you comment on that, because our time is up. Yeah.
Thank you. Something very important Zani has mentioned, and really to make my day. He has said the Jubilee in Nairobi seem not to be agreeing there is this campaign, this. Equally, the CORD principals have not agreed.
No.
There seem to be a different level.
We are not going to. This needs to be replied to, because at the end of the day, the fact that we haven't said who is a flag bearer doesn't mean we don't know who it is and when the right time comes.
But same to Jubilee candidates.
No, but you see, we are not having all this fighting there. So it's a question of time.
Nairobi is gone.
And with time, we are in it. I don't think so. I don't think so. I think it's a wait and see, and I think we're going to win.
Thank you so much, Senator Agnes Zani, Acting Secretary General ODM, Wanjiko Mohia, Women Representative in Nyandarua County. Because of time, we do not even have enough minutes for us to have final submissions. Cynthia Mutere, Governance Analyst, and as well as the Chairperson of the Women's League in Fort Kenya, helping us look at the headlines this Wednesday morning. Thank you so much for watching Power Breakfast. This is the end of this show. Cheche comes up in a short while. For me, Fred Indimuli, it's good morning.